So I imagine that most people here have heard the news today of a mass shooting in Texas. So a lot of lives were lost, a lot of suffering was expressed, a lot of pain was expressed, and there are um, people in the world right now in Texas who have lost what is most precious to them. Um, if you haven't heard about it, many children were lives were taken from them. Many children lost their lives, and many parents and grandparents lost uh, the beings, the people that they love more than anything in the world, certainly. So it's a great invitation to intimacy. It's a great invitation to remembering and practicing and kind of stepping into this recognition of suffering and this recognition of the depth of life, the sincerity of life in all of its dimensions. Some positive as we can imagine, and some as dark, some as negative, some as painful as we can imagine. So today we are reminded of that through this shooting, this great tragedy that took place in Texas. So I'd like to have a practice today that is a bit somber and focused on maybe we can say some metta, the wish for loving kindness, the wish for understanding, the aspiration to be compassionate and to recognize that everything is teaching us. Even these great tragedies are teaching us, reminding us, guiding us. So to work with this today, I immediately thought of a poem and a teaching by Thich Nhat Hanh. And the practice that I'd like for us to do together today is to listen to this reading of Thich Nhat Hanh's poem, teaching, entitled, "Please Call Me by My True Names." Listening to that deeply and maybe taking some time in silence and taking some time to practice metta. But really it's to connect with the truth of our lives and the world around us, and the inside and the outside coming together and taking even the most tragic experiences that even couldn't be imagined, right? We couldn't really comprehend this degree of loss, tragedy, pain, suffering. But to somehow allow that to be a teacher for us and to inspire us in our practice to alleviate suffering and to bring benefit to the world. So with a lot of gratefulness to Thich Nhat Hanh, we're going to start our practice today with the reading of his poem, "Please Call Me by My True Names." Don't say that I will depart tomorrow. Even today, I am still arriving. Look deeply. Every second I am arriving, to be a bud on a spring branch, to be a tiny bird with still fragile wings, learning to sing in my new nest, to be a caterpillar in the heart of a flower, to be a jewel hiding itself in a stone. I still arrive in order to laugh and to cry, to fear and to hope. The rhythm of my heart is the birth and death of all that is alive. I am the mayfly metamorphosing on the surface of the river, and I am the bird that swoops down to swallow the mayfly. I am the frog swimming happily in the clear water of a pond, and I am the grass snake that silently feeds itself on the frog. I am the child in Uganda, all skin and bones, my legs as thin as bamboo sticks, and I am the arms merchant selling deadly weapons to Uganda. I am the 12-year-old girl refugee on a small boat who throws herself into the ocean after being raped by a sea pirate. And I am the pirate, my heart not yet capable of seeing and loving. I am a member of the political party, with plenty of power in my hands. And I am the man who has to pay his debt of blood to my people, dying slowly in a forced labor camp. My joy is like spring so warm. It makes flowers bloom all over the earth. My pain is like a river of tears, so vast it fills the four oceans. Please call me by my true names, so I can hear all my cries and my laughter at once, so I can see that my joy and pain are one. Please call me by my true names, so I can wake up, and so the door of my heart can be left open, the door of compassion. Thich Nhat tells the story of the poem. After the Vietnam War, many people wrote to us in Plum Village. We received hundreds of letters each week from the refugee camps in Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, and the Philippines. Hundreds each week. It was very painful to read them, but we had to be in contact. We tried our best to help, but the suffering was enormous, and sometimes we were discouraged. It is said that half the boat people fleeing Vietnam died in the ocean. Only half arrived at the shores of Southeast Asia. There are many young girls, boat people, who were raped by sea pirates. Even though the United Nations and many countries tried to help the government of Thailand prevent that kind of piracy, sea pirates continued to inflict much suffering on the refugees. One day we received a letter telling us about a young girl on a small boat who was raped by a Thai pirate. She was only 12, and she jumped into the ocean and drowned herself. When you first learn of something like that, you get angry at the pirate. You naturally take the side of the girl. As you look more deeply, you will see it differently. If you take the side of the little girl, then it is easy. You only have to take a gun and shoot the pirate. But we cannot do that. In my meditation, I saw that if I had been born in the village of the pirate and raised in the same conditions as he was, I would now be the pirate. There is a great likelihood that I would become a pirate. I cannot condemn myself so easily. In my meditation, I saw that many babies are born along the Gulf of Siam, hundreds every day. And if we educators, social workers, politicians, and others do not do something about the situation, in 25 years, a number of them will become sea pirates. That is certain. If you or I were born today in those fishing villages, we might become sea pirates in 25 years. If you take a gun and shoot the pirate, you shoot all of us, because all of us are to some extent responsible for this state of affairs. After a long meditation, I wrote this poem. In it, there are three people: the 12-year-old girl, the pirate, and me. Can we look at each other and recognize ourselves in each other? The title of the poem is Please Call Me by My True Names. Because I have so many names, when I hear one of these names, I have to say yes. So in the face of this great tragedy today, this great suffering that was inflicted upon so many young children, and this great suffering that was expressed by this gunman, this pirate, I think this poem has a lot of potency and a lot of wisdom in it. And it's something that we can fully open up to and be with, not only as an exercise or a feeling of empathizing with Thich Nhat Hanh's experience in the past that led him to write this poem, but also this present day experience of mass shootings in America, targeting people of color, targeting children, and this great suffering that can come about when we make the choice as a society, when we make the choice as ourselves to forget our true names, to take the side of a victim and a perpetrator, to take a gun and shoot the person who is shooting, to make the decision to harm the person who is harming, perpetuating this cycle of suffering. So we have to do something about it. We have to show up from this place of compassion, from this place of wisdom and understanding, not more violence. So knowing the story of how this poem was written and knowing about this situation here in America in the modern day, I'd like to read this poem again. Please call me by my true names. Don't say that I will depart tomorrow. Even today, I am still arriving. Look deeply. Every second I am arriving, to be a bud on a spring branch, to be a tiny bird with still fragile wings, learning to sing in my new nest, to be a caterpillar in the heart of a flower, to be a jewel itself hiding itself in a stone. I still arrive in order to laugh and to cry, to fear and to hope. The rhythm of my heart is the birth and death of all that is alive. I am the mayfly metamorphosizing on the surface of the river, and I am the bird that swoops down to swallow the mayfly. I am the frog swimming happily in the clear water of a pond, and I am the grass snake that silently feeds itself on the frog. I am the child in Uganda, all skin and bones, my legs as thin as bamboo sticks, and I am the arms merchant selling deadly weapons to Uganda. I am the 12-year-old girl, refugee on a small boat, who throws herself into the ocean after being raped by a sea pirate. And I am the pirate, my heart not yet capable of seeing and loving. I am a member of the Politburo, with plenty of power in my hands, and I am the man who has to pay his debt of blood to my people, dying slowly in a forced labor camp. My joy is like spring, so warm. It makes flowers bloom all over the earth. My pain is like a river of tears, so vast it fills the four oceans. Please call me by my true names, so I can hear all my cries and my laughter at once, so I can see that my joy and pain are one. Please call me by my true names, so I can wake up, and so the door of my heart can be left open, the door of compassion. So let's spend this time together, sitting, breathing, being really intimate with this moment, and recognizing our true names so that we can hear all of our cries and laughter at once, so we can see all of our joy and pain are one. Let's recognize our true names so we can wake up and so the door of our hearts can be left open without any exception, so that this door of compassion can become bright, open. Recognizing all this suffering in the world, may this be a moment to be a source of peace, kindness, compassion, without any exception. May this moments of sitting together be a source of peace and stability in ourselves and in the world. And today, let us be inspired by and dedicate our practice to the sufferings of the world, the joys of the world, the changing of the world. We can generate a sense of compassion, a sense of understanding for the victims and the perpetrator. Breathing mindfully, breathing sincerely, touching this present moment wholeheartedly, and being here for whatever sufferings may arise, whatever joys may arise. Through our mindfulness and our compassionate intention, being a source for peace in the world at this moment. And especially being a source of peace for ourselves. Breathing mindfully and finding peace. just continue coming back to this present moment and coming back to this compassionate vow to practice peace, to bring about peace, to develop compassion. And we can focus on, we can bring about this wishing for happiness, peace, freedom for all those who have been in suffering in Buffalo, in Texas. All those beings who are suffering, their relatives, to wish for their happiness, to send that peace, that mindfulness to be with them right now. Recognize how much they need it, and to that degree, practice it, generate it. All those beings in Texas and Buffalo who lost their lives, their family members, those who loved them, those who they affected, those suffering beings who committed this act, who were in so much pain, so much confusion, so much loneliness, so much misery that they chose to act out in this way. We can say these words inside of our own minds. May they all be free. May they all know peace. May their suffering come to an end. And we cultivate and we learn about that we really mean this. May those who are suffering in Houston, in Texas, in Buffalo, may they be free from their suffering. May they be free from all fear. May they be at peace. Mindfulness and metta, being with this present moment and cultivating this way of loving friendliness, this way of compassion, wishing for this suffering to come to an end, and seeing it, facing it, being willing to go right down into that suffering, to be completely with it. And to wish with all of our heart and our sincerity for that suffering to come to an end. Encountering our own suffering, our own difficulty, and remembering how valuable, how important our mindfulness is, our compassion is, our loving friendliness is, and offering that to all those parents, grandparents, aunts and uncles, brothers and sisters who lost someone who they loved. Coming back to your mindfulness, coming back to your compassion, and offering, generating and sharing to all those who are suffering. Bringing this mindfulness inside and bringing this great compassionate wish inside. Offering and sharing to all beings who are suffering. Not to be discouraged by our suffering, our misery, our difficulty. Our sorrow may be so deep that our tears can fill the ocean, but our joy is so warm that it brings flowers to bloom. This mindfulness and compassionate wish, bringing inside and offering, sharing as much as we can right now. The tears that flow from our sorrow are vast enough to fill the oceans. And it is exactly those oceans that precipitate into the clouds, that rain down joy, healing, to bring flowers to bloom, to bring health and abundance. So at this moment, calling ourselves by our true names, all of the sorrow, all of the joy, those who kill and those who are killed, mindful of our true name, which does not discriminate, which is not separate, which is not good or bad, but this mindfulness, this presentness, and this compassion to perceive all suffering and to wish for all suffering to come to an end. mindfully breathing, offering our caring and compassionate attention to all aspects of the body and the mind. And as we feel that care, that sincere compassion towards our own body and mind, offering, sharing, generating, extending to all those in suffering. May they all be free from fear. May they all be free from pain or worry. May their loved ones know peace. And may our practice together support peace and joy all around the world. So the poem that we read today has been formed into a song by Thich Nhat Hanh's community, the Sangha of Interbeing. And I wanted to listen to that song together as we finish our practice together, and I think this is really going to be quite nice. So I encourage everyone to listen with an open heart, and I hope that this song will bring you a lot of inspiration and feeling of compassion in your life.
My joy is like spring so warm, it makes flowers bloom all over the earth. My pain's like a river of tears, so vast it fills the four oceans. Please call me by my true name, so I can hear all my cries and laughter at once, so I can hear that my joy and pain are one. Please call me by my true names, so that I can wake up and the door of my heart could be left open. joy's like spring so warm, it makes flowers bloom all over the earth. My pain's like a river of tears, so vast it fills the four oceans. Please call me by my true names, so I can hear all my cries and laughter at once, so I can hear that my joy and pain are one. Please call me by my true names, so that I can wake up and the door of my heart could be left open.
So we have come to an end of our remembering and practicing and our memorial service for those who lost their lives recently in mass shootings, especially the dear children who passed away today, and also to the perpetrators whose great suffering and great misery caused them to act in this way. At this time, we can leave the space open for a few moments if anyone would like to share or bring something up. Then the space will be open for that. And at the very end, we'll just say 3 sadhus together and offer the merit, offer the benefits of our good deeds together, our practice together to all those who are in suffering around the world. Yeah, go ahead. So
Can be overwhelming a little bit.
how do we not get overwhelmed by the suffering? I think that we do. You know, we do get overwhelmed by the suffering. And when that happens, we don't need to feel afraid or bad or wrong, but to be inspired, you know, to be encouraged, really. And it's kind of strange to think of it that way, you know, that this misery and this tragedy inspires us, you know, inspires us to be compassionate, inspires us to be good, inspires us to practice. But it really can. And when we go through that being overwhelmed, you know, we grew up in a certain way, or we find ourselves in a certain situation, or someone shows up to our, children's school and harms them. Um, we can become more compassionate, and we can see our life doesn't exist in a permanent way. It doesn't always stay the same, that we experience great loss and great misery and great difficulty and great being overwhelmed. But in that being overwhelmed, there's also an opening there to change, to do more, to appreciate the smallest things, the most ordinary peace. When we can lose someone we love and then see that person, or when we can go through a great trauma and then to see the truth, or to see our life in a leaf, in the sun, on a tree. It's this great opening, it's this great freedom. And that can also be overwhelming. We can become overwhelmed by that. So I don't think there's anything wrong with being overwhelmed. It's just how we either let it inspire us to grow and to deepen and to open our hearts, or if we close, if we tighten, if we harden, then we miss out on this beauty of life. It's our sorrows can fill the oceans, but our joy is so warm that it makes buds bloom. It makes the flowers bloom. So it's both sides of that. And the song that was sung about call me by my true names so that I can see that my joy and my sorrow are one. And we can really experience that. And I think people who become overwhelmed tend to be the people who step into this journey and are willing to take on this responsibility of the great sorrow of the world, this great salty ocean of our life, and to keep stepping into it, even though we get overwhelmed, but to say, okay, now I'm going to continue. Now I'm going to step out. Now I'm going to be kind. Now I'm going to be patient. Now I'm going to be generous. Now I'm going to totally change who I am. To be good, to be skillful, to be kind, to be compassionate, to be, from this point on, I'm going to totally change. And really seeing that suffering, it's a stepping stone to really seeing this joy, how warm our joy can be, how complete our freedom can be. And it's a process, but I feel that it is those people, it is that being overwhelmed that tends to inspire people to get on into their journey and their practice, to grow and become those people who are living the holy life. And we can all live that life, no matter how overwhelmed we become. Yeah, thank you, Bree.
Bonte, I have a question. So this horrible event is, at least for me, not something that's entirely theoretical. Some years ago, there was a shooting at a little town called Sandy Hook in Connecticut, where about a dozen children were killed by someone wielding a firearm. I live right near there. I had to spend the day trying to reach parents of children who were at that school, finding out whether or not they were alive or dead. Thankfully, they were alive, but it was a terrifying day to know these little children that I just saw at a party a week ago could have been shot and killed. I can have compassion for the victims. And I think with training, I can have compassion even for the perpetrator. But I have real difficulty having compassion for those that facilitate and allow this to occur, for those that profit off the misery of others, for those that get reelected on the backs of these horrible tragedies. It's a little too close to home. I almost hung up when I found out what the subject was. How do we have compassion for the arms dealer, using Thich Nhat Hanh's poem, who is not either suffering, maybe he is, suffering from pain and tragedy, but only seeks to profit? It's those persons that I have the most difficulty finding compassion for. Any thoughts you have are greatly appreciated.
I think we take as much responsibility as we can, and we can only do so much. You know, there's a limit to our feeling of compassion at any particular time, but at least we can recognize that the way that we express ourselves, either compassionately or with the intention to help, the intention to take care, is going to be what influences other people. And so if we can have compassion for the victims, the family members, even the perpetrator, that's what we should emphasize. And in recognizing and pointing out this other dimension, this other aspect of it, we should try to be as practical and as grounded as we can, and we shouldn't. We should try to carry that recognition of, this is also an aspect of you. This is our responsibility. It didn't just happen randomly, and that's the same for those. People that you mentioned, their input in it also didn't just happen randomly. So try to practically deal with the situation as much as you're able, as much as we are able to, but bring that compassionate intention to all of it. Remember that in all of it. And for someone like Thich Nhat Hanh, he is fully and completely is representing that compassion, wisdom, fully. But not all of us are in a position to do that. So we just bring as much of that compassion with us in the practical dealings of trying to deal with this situation. I was watching a short news video or broadcast about this situation, and immediately someone brought up what you're bringing up right now. And people are going to bring that up, and people are going to focus on that, and hopefully over time it will change a lot, right? I sure hope so. There's a lot of people who are invested in making that change, but it takes time, and it's subtle. It's subtle work. It's not something that we can fight over. But what's not really being emphasized in this kind of great tragedy is Thich Nhat Hanh's teaching. They're not inviting someone onto the news to talk about having compassion for everyone involved. So this is what we should emphasize. This is what we should try to generate and connect with and feel. And then as for that other aspect, try to take care of it. Do what you can, but don't get lost in that that feeling of not being empowered, not being able to deal with it, just keep that compassionate seed and that compassionate energy with it. And remembering, right? It's remembering that in whatever happens. And we're not perfect, and the people around us aren't perfect, and certainly the government is not perfect. I don't think so much big picture as I live a more isolated life from the government, but sometimes I have to deal with that. I kind of, not to focus so much on American society, but we just have to try to help from where we are and not become overwhelmed by the misery. And each and every moment of tragedy, each and every moment of righteous indignation or righteous, how can this be continuing this? That's also a reminder, to be compassionate, to be gentle, to understand that the cries of the world are expressed in many different ways, and arms dealers are one of those ways. People in suffering, people in misery, people in confusion, people in ignorance and darkness.
Bante, I had a question about the poem. In the section where it talks about call me by my true names, can you elaborate on the meaning of that, please?
So when you look at a flower, you can see the sun inside of the flower. When we look at a caterpillar, we can see the sun inside of a caterpillar. When we look at ourselves or the people that we care about, that we love, we can see ourselves, the sun inside of ourselves. We can see the sun inside of the people that we love. It's just nature. Thich Nhat Hanh teaches this Buddhist topic, this Buddhist truth about interbeing, so that we exist as aspects of each other. In spiritual circles, they talk about the one, right? We're all one. Buddhism goes a little bit deeper than that, but the one is also true. That we exist in a state of interbeing. So call me by my true name is not to separate. And it's also not to obfuscate or hide the truth about interbeing. Why did this pirate act this way? Why did the shooter act this way? Not because they flew in from Jupiter and landed here and wanted to do something horrible. That's not how that action takes place. It's causes and effects. It's causes and conditions. And if we grew up like that shooter grew up, it's very, very likely that we would have done the same exact thing. If we grew up the son of an arms dealer and we were raised that way, it's very, very likely that we would have done the same thing. And it's difficult to recognize that. And it's not just the negative, it's also the positive, it's also the beautiful, it's also the wonderful and the amazing. Those people who are limitlessly compassionate, kind, generous. We are also not separate from them, but we're also not separate from the shooter. So in having compassion for them, in calling ourselves, in saying to others, call me by my true name, We have compassion for all aspects of ourselves. We recognize, we see all aspects of ourselves, our true names, which are not based in separation, in the same way that you can't separate a flower from the sun. We cannot separate ourselves from each other. We cannot separate the past from the future.
Thank you, Bante.
Two questions over on YouTube. SB says, how do I control myself from taking very little things seriously? Because even small things hurt me very much. Hope you can help me. I hope so too. It's really simple. You know, we all are like that. I'm also like that. Smallest thing, the smallest sound, the smallest action, the smallest mistake that someone else makes or that I make, it's so frustrating, it's so disturbing, it's so upsetting. So we practice to not give so much importance to our reactivity, you know, to our judgment, to our being upset about a small thing, our being hurt by a small thing. Just to recognize that it is a small thing as you do, be patient and continue. And over time, you'll be less reactive towards those small things. And it's just a teacher for us. It's a reminder for us to cultivate, to be more careful, to be more compassionate, more aware, to take better care of our mind, and to be humbled, you know, that we're not this big, strong, special, enlightened person, or, you know, this in charge, or this is my house, or whatever, but we're just someone who gets upset at the smallest things, and we have to try and improve and bring more peace and patience into our lives, more endurance. Okay, and we'll take a final question from Noah, and then some people want to use the Dhamma hall that I'm in right now, meditation hall. Noah says, Bhante, how can we make merit for the dead and the suffering so that those whose lives were taken have favorable rebirth and those who are suffering find peace? Noah, it's just like this. It's to practice meditation. It's to do good deeds. It's to cultivate this energy of compassion, friendliness, love. It is to cultivate this practice of a willingness to be, to recognize, to face, to be with suffering, to generate, to bring up this compassionate wish for that suffering to come to an end, and to share that, to generate and share, to offer towards those beings, to send our intentionality, to send our merits, the good effects that come from our good actions, our wholesome activities, to those beings in that direction. Okay? So we just to do good deeds, to practice our meditation, and then to share, to offer, to send in those direction. And that does it. So as we finish up, I would just like to listen to that song again. I think it's so beautiful and wonderful. And I like to play it again, and we can all bring our hands together as we listen to it. And then as the song comes to an end, we will chant sadhu together and share our merits, the good effects from our good deeds, offer that to all the people who have recently passed away in mass shootings, perpetrators, victims, and to the arms dealers as well who have contributed to these suffering experiences. Okay, so let's bring our hands together and listen.
My joy's like spring so warm, it makes flowers bloom all over the earth. My pain's like a river of tears, so vast it fills the four oceans. Please call me by my true names so I can hear all my cries and laughter at once, so I can hear that my joy and pain are one. Please call me by my true names so that I can wake up and the door of my heart could be left open. My joy's like spring so warm, it makes flowers bloom all over the earth. My pain's like a river of tears, so vast it fills the four oceans. Please call me by my true names so I can hear all my cries and laughter at once, so I can hear that my joy and pain are one. Please call me by my true names so that I can wake up and the door of my heart could be left open.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. May all of the merits, compassion, and peace that we have generated today be offered in all directions, especially those children who have recently lost their lives, especially to all the victims of mass shootings, especially to the perpetrators of those mass shootings, and especially to those arms dealers who have contributed to this great suffering. May all beings be at peace. May all beings be at rest. May their loved ones be at peace. And may they once again know the warmth of joy. Thank you all for being here. This is the end of our session. Enjoy your moment and be happy and be peaceful. The world needs it. All right? Thank you.